Hello, hello. All right, I see sound this time. Yes. Success. Okay, let me share the live real quick. Ah, of course, OBS had to update again, right when I turned this on, or tried to get it to go live. But all right, hi everyone. Hello, hello. My name's EC, and I like to have respectful conversations about nuanced topics. With the passing of Dolly Parton and Tim Curry back to back in 1 week, I was thinking today might be a good day to have a conversation about the concept of authenticity, coolness, caricature, and cringe. And I wanted to have this conversation because I feel like as a society, we are pretty obsessed with the concept of authenticity. And we get very angry when we feel like we have been misled about how authentic something is. Oh, there we go. What? Sorry for the sound effects, everybody. Okay. So, hey Trey, hello, hello. But yeah, I wanted to have this conversation because, oh, is it doing in both ways? Exciting! It's multi-streaming, and I don't know when I set that back up, but here we go. Thanks, OBS. All right, so there is a couple of unexpected detours that this concept took me down when I started looking into it, including a scientific study that was done in the 1960s by a leading researcher who is very, very well renowned within his field of social psychology, Elliot Aronson. That was specifically about this concept of likability and inherently as well the concept of coolness, which I think is important to define for what it is, but also to recognize the importance of one to the other. Now, likability does not automatically mean you are cool. Being cool does not automatically mean you are likable. Authenticity is also very similar. It is a separate designation. It doesn't necessarily mean you are cool or you are likable if you are authentic. Cringe is also not the same as being, I guess, cruel, which is a distinction that can separate someone from being considered likable, but can also separate someone from being considered cruel. Aqua, you went on a date on Monday? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I want all the details if you feel comfortable. But I don't have tea, I have coffee. I am ready. Hi Joe, hello, hello. Thank you so much, y'all, for your patience. Things went a little south as they always do with OBS, but it's okay. I am here. I mean, I don't know why it's working, but it is working. I'm not going to question it. So, yay! Aqua, I'm so excited. Ah, love it. But yes, okay. I want to know about this thing. Answer when you feel comfortable, Aqua, and we will go into it because I want to know all the things. Okay, but let's talk about cool versus caricature, which is the way that I kind of umbrella termed people who probably don't qualify as cool, but definitely are still able to get attention. In the little tiny short that I did, I identified people like Clavicular or Andrew Tate as figures who would qualify as caricature. I also feel like Johnny Somali is another example of caricature. But on the other hand, you have the opposite end of the spectrum. So if we create a spectrum out of it, we have cool on one end, we have caricature on the other. And authenticity and likability fall somewhere in between. Now, I chose those people largely because I feel like they are good examples of the extreme, especially ways in which our appreciation of social dynamics changes when social media gets involved. Because the thing is, someone like Clavicular would have been laughed off of whatever type of podium would have tried to ascend pre-social media. He wouldn't have really been able to do very much other than maybe, I don't know, do a mail order thing, mail order service for medical things if he had tried to gain notoriety pre-social media. Not to say that there have not been caricatures through all of the eras, and that social media is the only way that caricature people are able to gain attention or social clout, but that there is a very different relationship that the wider population has to characters like Clavicular or Andrew Tate when you have social media involved in regards to how they are seen on a large scale social level. Now, there is a desire, I think, for everyone who may fit anywhere on this spectrum to be seen as cool. Wait, Joe says they don't know who you don't know who Clavicular is. Sorry. Oh, I must inform you. Oh, well, you are in for a ride. I apologize in advance. Um, oh my gosh, wait, okay, catching up with the chat. Aqua is saying she's sweet, patient, kind, empathetic, understanding, vibing so hard, but definitely mutual attraction. I'm so excited for you, Aqua. I'm so excited for you. This is so awesome. Oh my gosh. Yay. Ah, I I really am just so happy that you had, at the very least, you had a really positive date. And I hope we're reminded of all of the things about you that, can on an internal level be hard to remember are so wonderful about you. But, that's one of the beautiful components of dating, and also one of the beautiful components of, connecting with other people in that way when you kind of have to divulge yourself and be open with others in that way. It can really remind you that you are so much more than what you might be telling yourself. So I'm just so happy for you. Oh my gosh. Ah. And Joe is saying, I don't want to know. I'm old. I'm sorry. Oh, this is you're not labeling yet, going slow but building. That is the best. That is the best. I think that's one of the beautiful things about connecting with other people is at various points of our lives, we have such a desire to rush headlong into things. And eventually we get to a point where we're like, no, maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. Maybe we allow ourselves to be individuals before we become an us. And we work towards having a healthy relationship to both. And I think that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Little happy dance over here. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love, I love her. Aqua says she's enforcing a rule that every time I say something mean about myself, I have to say something nice after. God. Yes. Mm. Aka says we've been so open and vulnerable. It's nice and so effing scary. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is. Being vulnerable with people, hoping that doing that is gonna allow you to be seen for who you are and appreciated for who you are. Um, it's terrifying. It's terrifying, but it's such a good thing to do. It's such a good thing to do. Oh my gosh. Mm. Yay! Oh my gosh. What how oh, gotta ask. Um, how do you feel like you have, like, similar interests? Are there things that, um, you feel like you work off of each other, that you like that you both share in things that maybe are different, but you could learn like are learning from each other. Because that's another very oh, your therapist likes her? Oh, oh, that sounds like a good sign to me. That's amazing. Wow, if your therapist likes her, that's pretty freaking cool. Oh my gosh. Oh, god. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, playful teasing is very fun. I will say on a personal level, it's taken me a long time to learn how to do that because I take people very seriously. I don't always know when they're joking. My best friend had to learn that the hard way because they are somebody who is quite they view it as a blood sport, and I didn't realize that at first. I thought they didn't like me at all. I was wrong. They were like, "No, this is how you what do you mean? This is how you are friends. This is how you would communicate." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I have learned now." Ellie, that's important. Do you have similar interests to be in a good relationship? Ah, yes. Actually very important questions. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm loving these updates. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Well, okay. You know what though? I feel like this perfectly ties into our conversation about authenticity, likability, and coolness. And I guess what I'm going to start with is the what's called the Pratfall effect, which is the study done by Elliot Aronson that studied likability in subjects and people. And it was, again, a study done in the 60s, a social psychology experiment where it took 48 different participants and divided them into various groups and then played different recordings to each group and then had those groups scale the likability of the people they heard on the recordings. And um it was interesting what was discovered. So within those recordings, one recording was of somebody who was very like answering it was kind of structured as if it was a game show contestant who was answering questions on a game show. And they were asked very difficult questions about a range of different topics. And in one recording, somebody answered with a high degree of knowledge and capability to articulate themselves, and were able to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding through their responses. In another recording, you had somebody who had maybe a 30% ability to respond correctly and well to the questions. And then in the next set of recordings, you had both of those kinds of responses somebody who was knowledgeable, but halfway through the recording, legitimately spilled coffee all over a set of papers and was absolutely mortified, but still had to carry on answering questions while being mortified. And then the final recording was somebody who was also answering again at that 30% level of uh, knowledgeability and articulation, who also had an accident of some kind happen during the recording where they were legitimately mortified. And what was interesting is that when the person in the first recording, where you have the perfect responses, the subject groups who were listening to the recordings and rating them found the person who answered like exceptionally well, near perfect, we should say, was not considered very likable. They may be respected, but not likable. The person who answered the 30% level was also not considered very likable, but not respected either. Even there was some notation about there being a level of contempt. But when the variant, like, well responding recording was played, where the the person answering the questions was able to respond to those questions with knowledge and articulation, but they spilled coffee and were sincerely embarrassed, they were perceived as very likable. And then when the person who was, say 30% level, same recording, same situation, they also did something that was seen as embarrassing, made a mistake. They were seen much worse than the previous, say the second recording. And I thought that was a very interesting exploration of the concept of likability. So essentially, what it was able to discern is that when somebody is very knowledgeable and able to show themselves as capable, but they were also someone capable of making mistakes, having silly human things happen to them, it made them significantly more human for participants listening. Whereas when you have somebody who is not particularly good at something, and they are also making mistakes or embarrassing themselves in some way, instead of it humanizing that person, it increases the amount of contempt and lack of likability that the participants recorded for that recording. And it's you would think that the person who had responded perfectly without making any types of embarrassing mistakes would be the most likable, right? You would think they would be the most respected and the most likable and the most uh, well regarded, highly rated recording of the four. But because they were so capable, they were not very likable, which is kind of contradictory to every bit of messaging I feel like we ever get, and has only been compounded by the way that social media structures messaging in our modern day. So, what does that mean? What does that mean when it comes to figures like Dolly Parton or Tim Curry or Clavicular or Andrew Tate? Where do they fall within this set? Would they qualify as which recording? That's actually the thing that I'm very curious about. And I have my own theories, but I'm curious as to what you all think. But also, I need to check in on the chat because there's more information we're getting about this date. Okay, so speaking of likability, da, 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 da. Elliot asked, do you have similar interests to be in a good relationship? And Aqua says, it depends. It helps for sure. But if one person has an interest that is contrasting to the other, that might not work out. And that's very true. But if you have interests that maybe have a similar theme, if not the same exact structure, there's still a lot of possibility of healthy overlap. And Joe is saying, your ex-wife was 12 years younger than him. Her siblings were around my age, so she kind of grew up through the same decades with people like me. Until I have proof of accountability, I do great. Oh, I see. Okay, so Joe, you're saying that your ex-wife was used to the method and maybe even some of the generational specificities of how you move through the world. So there were less opportunities for there to be miscommunication or misunderstanding that can be generational. Um, What's funny is I also have consistently dated people who were older than me, and in the most extreme case, there was definitely a profound generational difference. Um, Very strong generational difference. Ah, yeah. They were a Gen Xer. Or no, were they? Yes, they were. Oh god. Yes, anyways. I learned a lot about a lot of different things, but there were definitely things that I had to learn to adjust to about particular mindsets in relation to social media, in relation to um, dynamics that are gendered, in relation to, you know, even even queerness. As somebody who myself was queer, but my ex was not, um, there were things that were more normalized in how conversation happened about certain topics that didn't I just didn't I just sometimes it would really take me by surprise. Um, and it was a, things that with time people can absolutely adjust and learn. But I think that particular person didn't quite always modernize themselves. But yes. Hi, Brant. Hello, hello. And Ellie is saying, in terms of attraction as well, um, is there in determining like healthy type versus not right healthy type? Uh, Ellie is saying that they often attract conservative and religious women, which is not the type of people that you want for a life partner or long-term connection. Um, And you're wondering if it is also perhaps due to certain stylistic and fashion choices that you make, that maybe don't immediately identify you as not a safe space for someone who might be more pro MAGA or more heavily conservative in their religious beliefs. Um, mm. So in chat, kind of talking about how environment can impact that. Um, Another thing that I think can as well is again related back to this concept of likability and confidence is there and coolness versus caricature is I think a lot of people across the political spectrum generally admire certain similarities, which is confidence and the ability to transcend certain social norms because of your sense of self. You see that with figures who I deem a caricature, like Trump. You see that with figures like, on the contrasting end, you also see that with figures like Ronald Reagan, who I think was the former version of the ideal Republican, even though a lot of his policies are very similar to things that we are experiencing today and laid the groundwork for what we're dealing with now and should have and just by many people were recognized for their extremity at the time. A lot of times he's seen in like hindsight as this gentleman who is respectable and had certain rules about how to engage with people that you purposely don't see with the way that Trump exists in the world. And what's interesting is there is still a through line in that they both have similar values. It's just their presentation is different. One is very, very focused on social media, on attention grabbing, and very focused on essentially short form video content mindset. The other, you could argue, is more focused on long form media mindset, having been a movie star first. Um, and I think that there's a very different language that goes into what translates on screen and on a wider scale depending on the medium that people tend like gravitate towards. And so when it comes to conservative people or not conservative people having any similarities in interest or attraction, I do think that the way that one moves through life can be interpreted as safe. It can be interpreted as perhaps with you, Elliot, it may be that you move through the world with, conviction and with knowledge, and your clothing doesn't indicate and can't necessarily indicate um, obvious political alignment. Even if we often ascribe certain clothing choices to political alignment, that's a different live stream. But um, what I do think happens is whenever you see people moving through the world with confidence and with conviction in their knowledge, there is a strong attraction to that. Add on to that that you are in an area where there is a higher concentration of more conservative-minded people. So by sheer statistics, you are going to, for a period of time, be more exposed to people who are more conservative. So you're, um, yes. So you are going to find that you are going to have a more consistent like pattern of meeting conservative people who are interested in you for who you are as a person and your conviction and your confidence. Um, and you will, I think, also eventually find more people who are in political alignment with you as you grow your confidence in your right to be in those spaces. Because I do think that there is, when you come from more conservative backgrounds and you have a lot of exposure to conservative cultural structures, it can feel a little intimidating subconsciously to go into a space where you know that the social dynamics are going to be different because political alignment maybe allows for different social dynamics. So that kind of can change how confident you are in those spaces. And that also means that you may be less likely to meet people who feel as if they're able to interact with you and your confidence and conviction in of self on an equal like level, on an equal playing field. So the more that you find confidence and comfort and composure within the way you move in leftist spaces, the more you will start being around and attracting leftist people. It sounds contradictory. Like, well, how do you do this with how do you do that? Essentially, you have to look for those spaces and then expose yourself to them again and again and increase your confidence as you're there until it feels just as right for you to be there as it does feel familiar to move through conservative spaces knowing you don't align with conservative values. Because there absolutely are certain senses of identity that get built around being the person who is not conservative in a conservative space. And regardless of where and when you are in life or era, universally, whenever somebody moves through a space with confidence and doesn't seem affected by the social expectations of that space, but isn't adding negativity to the space, it is seen as very positive, very attractive. People gravitate towards those people. And I think that actually kind of brings us back to our conversation about coolness. What is it to be cool? Ellie, when you are moving through conservative spaces with the confidence and conviction you have as a person who doesn't always share those mentalities, you are very cool. When you're moving into spaces where you're more self-conscious because it's new, you're learning how to feel cool in those spaces. It's a different it is a difference. And eventually you will fully feel confident when you're in those spaces too. So it's interesting because I think everybody has this happen where you Um, j- uh, okay, so I'm catching up on chat really quick. Mm, okay. So we're talking about as well as what? Okay, so I think there's some questions about like access that you might have to like and what it is to move in various spaces based on political alignment. Um and I do think that what often happens, and this is a universal human thing, when we find people who have similar values to us, we often concentrate in those spaces. And then, especially when it comes to how that reflects on a political, like voting level, on a governmental level, those values get reflected in who gets voted in, which is why you have things like red states and you have blue states. And it's also, in a way, I think, indicative of the types of confidence that people find interesting and attractive. So, for, say, people who are more MAGA, they find I guess you could say, what are they called? The tabloid style confidence that Trump has, born from his years of utilizing tabloid media all the way back from the 80s to shift his social image on the public scale, especially in relation to his wealth, and access to higher upper echelon New York social circles. Um, a lot of people find that type of braggadocious, cocky movement through life as attractive or ideal. And so people who find that ideal often end up concentrating together. Now, on the other hand, you have people who find figures like, hmm, who's a good example? On the other hand, you have figures like maybe Mamdani, who are not braggadocious, who are not cocky, and they are very leftist in our political systems. And you see a concentration of support and a concentration of people wanting to be in the space where that leftist confidence or that type of confidence is on display or is the norm. So okay, and then I see there were some jokes about like what it means to coolness. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. So there was a comment that was like, okay, so if you're trying to be cool, what you need to do is sag your pants. And I think that idea comes from that's a conversation kind of about appropriation, and the way that Black American culture has been um, taken in and exported, I would argue, to other areas on an international level, but also on a social dynamic level. Okay. Ali says, if I'm embarrassed in a social situation, I would think, what would Harrison Ford do? And that usually helps. I like that. Well, okay. So this is again another good example of like a figure who is a easy identifier as someone who's cool. Now, let's get into what it means to be cool. What is it to be cool? Why is Dolly Parton so cool and beloved? Why is Tim Curry so cool? Why is Mamdani cool? Why is Harrison Ford cool? All of these figures are people who were moved through life where they have achieved certain major social accomplishments. All of them are, we know who they are and we know who their names are because they have gained a lot of social attention for work they have accomplished. Ah, I see, Joe. Okay. So, so there is a kind of realm of movement. These people like all and this goes all the way to how when you were in high school, when you were in school at any point, there was always like that one person or a group of people who just seemed really cool and you didn't really always know why. You couldn't exactly put your finger on what it was that was so cool about them, but I bet you that at some point you were like, well, they just don't seem to care what anybody thinks. And I think that that is actually an important thing to look at. So, coolness is having confidence in one's self. Now, that can mean that you fit into conventional norms, or it can mean that you don't. Now, for people who end up highlighted on a national or international scale, that often translates to people who don't fit into conventional norms. Let's take Dolly Parton, for example. She had this incredible interview that I stumbled across where she was being asked by an interviewer if she felt ridiculous. And I'm absolutely paraphrasing here. The conversation was certainly a little bit more structured than that, but it was essentially, don't you feel really silly out in the world with this ginormous blonde wig and dressed the way that you are? Um, when you could be normal, like you're a beautiful woman, why don't you just wear your hair the way it normally is? Why don't you wear clothes that are not so over the top? And Dolly's response was like, yes, well, that's because it's my choice. It's my choice to wear these things, to move through my life this way, because it is what feels right to me. And it isn't going to fit every era of fashion. And she has so many good quips, but she was like, the one of the most boring things you can do is be fashionable. Because it is essentially, instead of deciding for yourself what you like as an individual from the array of options that exist in the world, it is following the trends of what other people tell you you should be doing. And um okay, yes, also Harrison Ford has, I think, been identified as more of a left-leaning figure. There's a comment from chat. But okay, so either way, when Harrison Ford, let's talk about him, is also somebody who, clothing wise, does he stick out as doing any kind of like crazy clothing choices? Is his hair like super identifiable? Like if you see his hair on somebody else, you're gonna be like, that's Harrison Ford hair. No, you're probably not. But his confidence in himself, in his body, in how he moves, in the characters that he has depicted on screen are consistently confident. And he, as a human being, is consistently confident. And I think that that is one of the major through lines. Now let's look at Tim Curry. Tim Curry is a person who I don't know if they ever, let me see if Tim Curry ever identified in any particular gendered way. Um, do do do. Well, that's not very defining. Well, okay, so I guess hasn't defined defines himself as he, him. Also doesn't often define any orientation. But okay, so do 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 do. So Tim Curry is a very I guess, is a figure who was extraordinarily influential. Is an actor who's appeared in a lot of really amazing films, but was most well known for the Rocky Horror Picture Show and for being and playing a trans character within that show. And, wearing corsets and underwear and high heels and lipstick and a lot of eyeliner and makeup and um, fishnets and oh, is it so it's showing up in two ways? Okay, cool. Yeah, it should be showing up in a vertical stream and also in the wide form stream. So that's awesome. But yes, so I also love Rocky Horror. I know. I know. That was actually, well, that's okay. That's a tangent and an aside I will get into about Rocky Horror later. But um, Rocky Horror is definitely also a foundational experience for me, as it was for a lot of other people. I think it was probably a lot of people's first experiences in like a public setting with established queer community. Just because of the fact that it is a gathering space that is not not just like, getting together at school and realizing like all of, maybe getting all your queer friends together at school and realizing we're all queer, but like a place that is a structured environment that celebrates queerness. So Rocky Horror Picture Show is also still the longest running, I think, movie ever, because ever since it premiered in the 70s, there are like live renditions of Rocky Horror that go with the movie, but you have the movie playing on the background with actors who are playing out the scenes on stage at the same time. Um, oh no. Joe is saying the place that plays the Rocky Horror at in his home space has been bought out by a non-denominational church. Did they decide that they were no longer going to be doing Rocky Horror? I'm surprised a non-denominational church would have any type of issue with that. Um, but okay, so so where was I? Rocky Horror, Tim Curry. So Tim Curry was also very unapologetic in his portrayal of Dr. Frankenfurter, the character from Rocky Horror that catapulted him to fame, but also changed the conversations around queerness and identity for generations now, generations of people, and created a space for like very much like a sanctified space for people to either consistently have community or be introduced to how queer communities work, that is purposely accessible for younger audiences. And um oh, Rocky Horror indeed. So there's this very specific through line that if you look at the people we've talked about so far, Tim Curry, Dolly Parton, even Harrison Ford, all of them have contributed to like really, really foundational and important components of art. They've all contributed to something that goes beyond themselves, even if the focus of how it was structured is maybe about themselves. Dolly Parton singing songs where she is the singer, and perhaps the song is autobiographical. But the songs and the music and the community that she fostered at her shows, through her fan networks, and then what she chose to do with the resulting financial compensation from that interaction was really specific. Tim Curry as well, even if he himself did not publicly identify himself in any particular way, was able to leave a legacy that allowed a positive social change. Harrison Ford as well. His role that he's for sure best known for is arguably Indiana Jones and Han Solo are both critiques of fascism. It's funny how that works. Like Star Wars is a massive critique of fascism. Star Wars is very much a exploration about what happens when societies are living under fascist government and how to respond to it. And Harrison Ford is an example, and his character that he embodied and has been, I think, perceived that way since, is an example of coolness, of confidence. And I want to use that particular example as a way to discuss where the concept of cool really came from. So, coolness, our idea of what it is to be cool, actually comes from, surprise, surprise, Black Americans, enslaved Africans who had to navigate intimidation, horror, evil at all times. And there, a word became associated with anyone who was able to navigate the intense psychological and physical harm that would be imparted on anyone who was enslaved. It was being able to maintain your cool, to maintain yourself and not react in extreme ways when faced with extreme cruelty. It was also something that comes from jazz musicians, because there was a jazz musician who, God, I can't remember his name. Let me look it up real quick. I this all down. It's also the same person who invented the word. Lester Young was a saxophonist in the early 40s. So it was used to describe a state of mind of being like cool, calm, and collected, which came from again what I just talked about with like enslaved Africans and Black Americans who had been descendants of enslaved Africans who were having to navigate white supremacy and cruelty and the entire slavery system, and were able to maintain their sense of self and their sense of confidence and in the face of intense cruelty and intense intimidation. And then there was also, again, Lester Young, I think, is transformed it into a social structure that I think became more accessible to people who were not within that community by utilizing his music to try and typify what coolness was through the tones of his saxophone. He also took it from the way that when you were in jazz clubs, it could get very, very hot, often because of where the jazz clubs had to be located, and often had sound ordinances that could disproportionately be used by policemen against Black Americans. So, for God forbid, playing music, they would if they opened their windows and cool air came in, it became a component of the night when cool air came in and it cooled everybody down after, dancing and engaging with the music and playing. And so there is, as with so many of the most important components of what American culture is, it came from the Black American community. Price, price. And ever since, it has had an enduring social structure. It has always been about embodying that internal stability, embodying that state of mind, embodying the ability to move through intense social structures without being, at least externally, negatively affected. And you see Dolly Parton embodying that. You see, again, these figures that we've identified, Tim Curry, and you've seen Harrison Ford doing that. Obviously, Lester Jones was doing that. so many people who have. Joe, what do you mean invited and disgusted at the same time? Ellie is also saying, or that Ellie's saying, what? Star Wars is anti-fascist? Next, you're going to tell me that Blade Runner is about police brutality and dehumanizing people of color or something. Or that Captain America is actually a critique of American systems rather than open patriotism. Can you imagine? I mean, you said it, I didn't. But it's true. No, yes, you're right. It's very true. 100%. But yes, so it's essentially the structure of, on one end, you've got people who are cool-headed in the face of intensity. And then you have, and what like then you have like different forms of coolness, but ultimately, how does coolness relate to likability? And how does it relate to authenticity? And why does this in any way relate to clavicular or Andrew Tate? Like how? And I want to get to that. So, okay, Joe. No, it's okay. That's totally fine. But one one thing that I think is, oh, where did it go? It's right here. Scared me. Okay, there we go. One thing that I think is Joe, I don't know how to do like I don't think this works the same as TikTok where you can like invite people into your stream that way, or at least if it does, I don't know how to do it. But either way, maybe we can figure that out in the future. For a future stream, do some research and stuff to explore a different topic. But coolness and likability, what's the difference? So coolness is that state of mind, that ability to navigate intensity with calmness, essentially, and confidence. Um, Often, honestly, just it sounds like having a very strong sense of self and emotional control to some degree. But likability seems very different. In that example we talked about earlier, the scientific study, which was the Pratfall effect, which was coined by the scientist who structured and authored that study, Elliot Aronson. When you have somebody who is able to demonstrate capability, knowledge of any kind at a very strong level, very impressive level, if they are too perfect, our brains don't perceive them as people, perceive them as statues. And I think you see this the most clearly with beauty. When people are able to typify beautiful, like standards of beauty, say Brooke Shields or K-pop is actually a really good example of how people will at least have open conversations about that online. Who is it? Felix from Stray Kids, Taeyong from BTS, the entire group of ATEEZ, like all of them in that particular group, are definitely almost canonized. Lisa from Blackpink, Rose from Blackpink, Jennie from Blackpink, Jisoo from Okay, Blackpink in its entirety. Literally, there are so many idols. Wonyoung. Oh, from I've. Anyways, there are people where their physical presentation dehumanizes them to others. So that people, especially within the idol industry, which really cultivates this structure, they are supposed to be perfect. Now, add on to that this added layer that these are all, within the K-pop industry at least, and everybody that I've named, are people who are exceptional in their fields. Exceptional singers, dancers, producers, creators, social media performers. They are exceptional. at, as well as models, they're incredible in all these different, very, very difficult fields that are not always respected for what they are, but also still idealized hugely. Um, oh, it doesn't. Okay, so, so what happens with those people, with all of those figures, and you see this, I think, the most obviously with K-pop figures, but you've seen this with every single um, westernized celebrity as well, from Johnny Depp to Brad Pitt to um, what do you call him? Why is their name escaping me? Either way, even to the Harrison Fords, you see this idealization of these figures because they have physical attributes that are considered in line with conventional beauty standards. Oh, Kate Moss, there she goes. That's the other one that I was thinking of. It's somebody where they are supposed to be the epitome of what it is to be attractive. Um, Brooke Shields, that's the other one too. And again, all the people I'm naming are people who, in Western spaces, are at the very least perceived to be white. Johnny Depp, I think, maybe isn't, but I'm not sure. But within the K-pop community, the idealization of paleness and very specific features, heights, weights, body types, all of that is, again, very rigid, very structured. So you have people who are able to achieve specific ideals, and then on a grand scale are appreciated for achieving those ideals, and then have to have extra components to them on top of that. Like within the K-pop industry, you have to be a like 10-layer capable person. You have to be able to do so many different jobs at exceptionally high levels to beat out the competition and to make it to the notoriety stage, where you get to be part of a group, where you get to be presented internationally and then have to live with all of the components of that. A lot of people within K-pop train from the time that they are like 4 or 5. In Western spaces, you also have, at least with in the acting or the music industry, you have people who are also training from a very young age to try and attain certain levels of attractiveness, of ability. Ariana Grande, for example, she's an actress and she's a very incredible singer, super talented. I don't know about her acting because I don't think I've ever seen her act. Oh wait, hold up. What am I talking about? I did used to see the I forgot that was her when she had red hair. Duh. Okay, anyways. But yeah, she's a good actress, I think. But da, 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 these are all people who are extraordinarily highly accomplished. And you could argue all of these people are cool. They fit the parameters of somebody who is able to navigate extreme pressure well, maintain themselves, publicly at least, well. But are they likable? And within that scientific study, they wouldn't be considered likable because they had an example of somebody who was exactly what all of these figures are. As close to perfect as you can get, arguably. But as soon as you see any one of these figures do something like stub their toe, drop something, spill coffee on themselves. Or a good example is when Jennifer Lawrence stumbled up the stairs when she was accepting her Oscar when she was like 22 years old. That shifted the perspective about her, where she went from being cool to likable. And the combination of those two things is extraordinarily important in our social sphere. You don't have to be J-Law getting an Oscar. You don't have to be Ariana Grande navigating the movie industry and the music industry and the TV industry. You don't have to be on Young getting through the K-pop industry to be cool and likable. You just have to be confident and knowledgeable about the things that interest you. So I guess we've kind of identified, okay, likable and cool can technically be two different things, but the superpower is when they are combined. What's authentic? Authentic that can be something completely different because you can have, say, someone who is very authentic, who's radically unlikable, radically Aqua. Don't say that. Aqua says, "Imagine being likable." Obviously, you're deeply likable. We all like you. So, haha, I win. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. Okay. But yes. So like there is this really fascinating component to this where again, I'm kind of like building out this spectrum. You've got cool on one end, you've got likable somewhere in here, you've got authentic over here, and we haven't even gotten to caricature. Ooh, but we will. Yeah, there we go. Ellie says, say something nice now. Aha. You have rules. You must abide by them. We didn't make these rules. You told us. So okay, anyways. Where was I? What am I thinking? What am I doing? What are words? All right. Okay. So okay. Oh geez. Okay. So you can be authentic without being likable or cool. But what does it mean to be authentic? Because we also are deeply obsessed with the concept of being authentic. And I wanted to connect our kind of idealization of authenticity with coolness. Because I think that when it comes to social media conversations, most of the time, when we are talking about something that we prioritize as positive because of its authenticity, we're often identifying something that we find cool. Um, Aqua says, unless you're gonna, unless you're gonna make out with y'all and bill you for therapy, you don't get that power. What if I do because I say that I do? Aha. Da, 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 da. Anyways, um, ah. Ellie is saying, I'm not wearing the coral blue #2 semi-gloss lipstick just to not make out, Aqua. Okay. Well, I'm glad y'all are connecting positively in chat. Thank you so much. Yay, you're making new friends. Well, actually, not new friends. Y'all have been friends for a minute. So, anyways, cool, likable, authentic. You can have somebody who's very authentic who's extraordinarily frustrating. You can have somebody who is authentic or something that is authentically bad. You can have, for example, Laura Loomer, authentically awful person. Yeah, Netanyahu, authentically terrible person. To the degree that the ICC still has a warrant out for his arrest. So you can have figures like anyone in the SS, authentically horrible people that needs no explanation, but they were authentic to their ideals. But that's still, so that's what I mean by authenticity, and that you can have people who are wholeheartedly in Ted Cruz, Caitlyn Jenner, um, yeah, who are wholeheartedly authentic But that doesn't mean they're good people, or that doesn't mean that they are likable, and that doesn't mean that they are um, well regarded or that they're cool. So Brent says nobody likes him genuinely. Ted Cruz, yeah, no. No, I highly doubt anybody does. Um, actually, it's funny, Ellie? One of my dad's friends is. Oh, no, no, no. I was thinking Ted Nugent. Different person. Different person. Um, anyways, unrelated. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So let's go back to the conversation about authenticity, likability, and coolness. So I think we've already established authenticity doesn't always equate to likability or coolness. They can be radically different things, but we often identify authenticity for coolness in the social media sphere. Now, why do we do that though? I think we do that, at least from my personal perception, that we do that for convenience. Because we'll often look at, say, an influencer and identify them as inauthentic when they've done something that we don't agree with or it doesn't align with the brand they have presented up until that point. You see that with any influencer who has had to make an apology video, ukulele or not, where there's a particular brand that, or at least a social presence that uh, a particular social presence that when you have a lot of social access and are seen online, are seen as core to how you move through the world and how you are perceived. I'll do Kylie Jenner and meta glasses. Is it really ridiculously off-brand that she's endorsing and collaborating with meta glasses? Not really, but are people frustrated and surprised to a degree? Yeah, and I think that's largely because of the fact that in her presentation of self, in interviews and in any of the kind of docu-series or reality television shows she's been a part of, she does identify consistently how difficult and damaging it was to be perceived on an international level from the time she was, what, 9 years old, and how she doesn't want that in her life now without being able to control how that perception is structured. So that meaning she gets to choose what content is shared online. She gets to choose whether or not she's being recorded. And with meta glasses, the irony is that that's the whole point of meta glasses, whether or not that's acknowledged, is that it allows people to record without consent. And so it's very contradictory, where you have a figure like Kylie Jenner, who I would also argue, again, not somebody who I think many people see as likable, but maybe some people see as cool. Although I would argue she goes in the caricature end of the spectrum, but still, that at the very least, I do believe she was being authentic in her former conversation about how damaging it was to be perceived and to be recorded without consent from the time she was a child, all of the time. Um, and for her to then endorse something that directly contradicts that is a very obvious example of someone being inauthentic. But there are still people who maybe would identify her as cool because she has been at the forefront of many major social trends, fashion trends, um, things that are seen positively because of her access to financial support, to money. Um, mm. But either way, so you can, again, have very different things, which is kind of one reason that I am actually putting authenticity in the middle of this spectrum. Because in the social media sphere, authenticity is going to mean something a little bit different than it would have pre-social media. Pre-social media, authenticity was identified based very much, at least in my perception, as whether or not you as a person were consistent in your beliefs, your messaging, and what you were confident about as you move through the world. If you are somebody who is seen as a social figure, say you're an actor, you're an entertainer, you are a politician, you are a writer, you are a creator of any kind, you are a scientist who's well renowned. Um, the messaging you release needs to be consistent in all spaces, from when you're in person to when you're on a podium. And social media has become essentially a high octane version of that expectation, which is why I think authenticity is often conflated with coolness, and the word gets a little mismatched. Brant says that's why Trump has gotten so big, because people felt he was real and not polished. We will get into that. Yes. Which is interesting to me, that it's like he's not polished, and it's like everything that he does is purposeful. All he is doing is recycling, again, the tabloids headlines that were just as likely to be like, woman impregnated by UFO, next to actually the king, or was it Prince Charles, is not real, like a body swap of something. Yeah, it's just like those kind of really exaggerated headlines, exaggerated concepts that get your attention, but don't actually have substance behind them. And that is going to get us into the caricature conversation. So, Brant says it's not all planned, because some are unhelpful. Are they unhelpful, though? Because I think Trump is attracting exactly who he wants to attract. He has created a $70+ million, a million people strong structure of people who believe in him, who will believe him regardless of the truth. So it's almost as if I think it doesn't matter if it is seen as negative to the people who already don't like him, because all it does is reinforce the beliefs of the people who need to believe in him. Because if they believe in him and then they suddenly realize that what he has been saying is stupid and also cruel, they would have to come to terms with the fact that they themselves have absolutely endorsed incredible cruelty, like next level evil. And many people don't want to. They're too afraid. So, people are looking for a chance to jump off of this ship that they have gotten onto, but Brant, well, they don't push them hard enough. There's still, it's like we forgot that 1,000+ people just went missing. Sorry. Disappeared from Alligator Alcatraz, and we don't know where they went. We still don't know. Anyways, so this is the thing. Let's get into the caricature. So authenticity doesn't always have to be authentic. It doesn't always have to be likable. It doesn't always have to be cool. Likability isn't always cool, but it is authentic. Cool isn't always likable. Arguably, it is authentic. When you have the combination of cool, likable, and authentic, you get Dolly Parton. Not kidding. Kidding, not kidding. You get people that are genuinely cared for and loved. But there's a really important through line with all of these things that I'm talking about and all of the people that I'm identifying who fall into this area of the spectrum. None of them harm on a grand scale. People who qualify in this area consistently help or consistently provide some kind of positive. Honestly, it can even be neutral. Like, has Chris Hemsworth done anything positive? No, well, he did do the AI ad or the Kelshi ad. Ugh. Okay, so a lot of figures are who a lot of figures that are famous will qualify and will fit within to at least one of these three. Um, okay, I would argue that most figures who we know of on a celebrity scale or a large scale, in all fields, regardless of if they are entertainment celebrity or if they are a politician or if they are in the sciences or if they are writers or if they are um, artists of any kind of whatever or scientist, whatever field they're in, whatever component of the world that they exist in, from the level of well known to the level of not well known. You can be all three of these things, or you can be another level above this, where if you have social power and you have social, say, financial backing, what you choose to do with that and how you amassed those things has a massive effect on how people perceive you. Dolly Parton, again, is coming back to her partially because she passed yesterday, but also because one reason that there has been such an outpouring of why, why her after her passing is because of her very positive change and effect and what she did with the money she made. Elon Musk is not going to be mourned. He's not going to be cared about. He is not cool, and he never will be. He couldn't if he tried, because he inherently doesn't actually have any confidence. He doesn't have any sense of self. He doesn't have any of the things that make him worthwhile to other people. He just inherited money and is bombastic. Um, mm, Ellie is saying the only kind of neutral that I can think of is Robert Downey Jr. talking about his distaste for AI in front of Joe Russo, the director of Infinity War and Endgame, who is in favor of AI. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think being against AI should probably, especially in like creative fields, should probably be a real bare minimum. But um, it is surprising how many people are trying to look at it as if it is like the internet. It is not like the internet. It is not a thing you just need to adapt to quickly, or else you will get left behind. It is a very different sort of beast. That's a great conversation to have another day. Ellie says Elon Musk isn't cool. Someone should tell him that. I don't know if he could hear you if you tried. Um, Ooh, Brant, that's a really good comment. Musk has his followers. People always mistake money for talent. And this is what leads us into the caricature conversation. All right, so let's talk about caricature now. We have, I think, identified something important. We have, well, at least something. We have like these three layers of existence that you can have that all together are seen very positively on a social sphere. Coolness, likability, and authenticity. They are independent things that, when combined, are like the Powerpuff Girls. Really useful, really great, iconic. When you have um, people who are able to combine all of those things, and then on top of that, return positive to the community, especially on a grand scale, especially if they have access to larger communities than the average person, and they return, like Dolly Parton did with her Imagination Library, or with any of the active uh, work that she did to encourage and to support Black communities throughout the United States, um, especially considering she's from an extraordinarily conservative background. Um, she was able to take all of the components of her existence and, I would argue, find what was useful and helpful, and then find what she could be confident and proud about from her background and from her world and from her life, and then also open her mind to engage the things that perhaps she hadn't been exposed to the same, and find beauty and positivity in those things, if there were cultural differences or not. Which shouldn't sound like it's that hard, but it is shocking how hard that is for a lot of people. Um, Akko is saying the amount of people who think all billionaires worked hard for their money instead of just generational wealth being passed down. Yes. Yes. I saw really actually this is another conversation that I think is part of this too is and we can have I think maybe should have a stream where we talk about um how generational wealth works in our social media economy, because there was a creator, the one who was of her name again, Jules something, da, 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 da. Jules LeBron, there we go. So the creator who made the very demure, very mindful video, and people thought that, she gained a lot of followers. People thought that she had a lot of money because she had a lot of followers. And she recently has been getting an incredible amount of harassment and hate online for starting a GoFundMe for dental work, which can actually cause neurological issues if it's not handled. And she needs extensive dental work. And people questioning and critiquing every decision she's made. Financial literacy is something that when you come like, it's very, very hard. It's not taught in our school system. It's not easily accessible. You often need someone else to teach you how to have money or what to do to grow money that most of us don't have access to. But if you come from a space where you have generational wealth, somebody else has already been doing that. And you may have a better chance of getting access to financial advisors who could help you figure out how to grow your wealth or how to maintain it, and how to use and think about wealth in ways that most of us living paycheck to paycheck can't conceive of. So Jules LeBron, for example, is somebody who comes from a very impoverished background who who used the short-term amount of wealth she could get to take care of her family and attain things in the way that she thought she was supposed to. Um, but it didn't magically change her life and transfer into this long-standing, long-lasting career that was going to financially set her forever. And a lot of people don't know that. Whereas you have Elon Musk. And here we go to the caricature finally. Caricature in full is Elon Musk, clavicular, Andrew Tate, where you have people who have learned to become the most extreme version of an idea. So with clavicular, it's looks maxing. With Andrew Tate, it's alpha bro, red pill. With Trump, it's... I don't even know how to identify that one. It's MAGA. I'll just say MAGA. It's Project 2025, 2026. Hey Riley, hello, hello. Brand is saying financial literacy is starting to be taught more now, but there is a huge gap in knowledge. That is true. There is a little bit more access, I think, because to some degree of social media, when it comes to having access to information that the average person or anybody could share through social media, which is extraordinarily important and I think very positive. Um, But yes, so let's get to Elon Musk. Let's get to all of these people. I don't even know how to qualify Elon Musk either, other than a very much a wealthy person who has very little care for the negative or harmful um, effects of his actions. And all of the people that I mentioned who I would qualify in the caricature category are people who are causing sincere harm and are utilizing harm as a method of attaining social status. And I think that's really, really important because you can be an authentic person who's super mean and unkind. Absolutely. You can be an authentic person who is um unlikable in every way. But authenticity is in a different space than caricature. I would argue caricature is at the total other end of the spectrum. And it is the end of the spectrum where you have the most amount of cruelty as a form of social dominance. Using cruelty as a form of like trying to attain social dominance. So with clavicular, who's, looks master extraordinaire, trying to very desperately attain an ideal that he can't fully embody because it's not physically real. You have Andrew Tate, somebody who is also trying to attain an ideal that he cannot embody because it is not real or possible, but is causing incredible amounts of harm. Incredible amounts of harm. Um, Andrew Tate is a lot worse than I think a lot of people realize. He is he is really, really deeply cruel and sick. Deeply. And it's not just the way this Hustler University or any of this online schemes, it's the way that he's abused children. He's awful. He's awful. Um, Aqua is saying authenticity terrible is still authentic. Actually, streamers fit this well. Caricatures of good people that are actually awful. And Brand, yeah, you're right. But those extremes, Brand is saying, but those extremes are what goes viral and gets attention. Exactly. So this is why in the beginning of the stream, I kind of talked about how people who I would fit in the caricature level wouldn't make headlines or wouldn't be able to garner the amount of capital and social clout that they have now without the way our attentions have shifted because of social media. We have become very, very attuned to opening up our phones and expecting to see things that are purposely structured to hit our most reactive neural responses, our most reactive instinctual responses with light, with sound, with attention grabbing images, scenes, movement. All of that is like the way the algorithms are structured, the way that social media is organized. It was done purposely to ensure that you would spend as much time as possible on these platforms. And the figures who are in this caricature end of the spectrum, they are very aware of that and they are using that to their advantage. They're hosting live streams that go for hours and hours and hours and hours, not because they're going to have a high, like, especially in the beginning, would have had a high amount of people watching, but because, or they even have anything particular to contribute and to share or to say, but because they know that if they are consistently the person who shows up when you're scrolling, eventually you're going to stop and watch and maybe even subscribe. And if you keep seeing something and keep seeing something and keep seeing something, you're going to become normalized. It's going to become normalized to you. You're going to become accustomed to it, and you're going to start expecting it. And if you don't see it, it's going to suddenly disrupt your senses of self, of like how things are supposed to be. So if you're on a live stream for, say, like 12 hours, you're going to show up as recommended in people's feeds a lot more. So that's what Andrew Tate would do when he would force people into S work. He would force them to be on his camera for 17 hours straight sometimes or more. He would also structure his videos so that you would get the most emotionally overwhelming, over the top titles, phrases being said. Fresh and Fit's another really good example of this. Fresh and Fit, absolutely caricature level. But yes, all the Alpha Bro podcast red pill people are absolutely in this extreme level. But what they're working on, what they're trading, is attention in exchange for rage, in exchange for anger, and in exchange for despair. Because if they can make you feel less than, they can sell you something to make you feel a little bit better. And you will buy it. At least some people will. And if they can get enough people to normalize this sense that there is something that needs to get fixed about you, then you'll get more and more people into this belief system that you have to buy in. It is interesting because with looks maxing, with red pill content, what those things are doing is not dissimilar from what I think probably magazines did to Gen X and millennial women in the all the way from like the 70s, 80s through the early 2000s, mid 2000s. The ways that it would, very purposely break down a person's sense of self based on physical appearance and reduce people to nothing but their physical appearances and sense of attraction towards others. Because a lot of media marketed towards women in that entire period from, I mean, honestly, from time immemorial, but on a major social level, on a major media level, since we've had media, the conversation has been significantly more, not that it's never focused on men, but it's been significantly more focused on women, um, not caring if they are intelligent, not caring about long-term goals or aspirations. It's about reducing them to their physical appearance and how attractive they are to other men, not even themselves. Not if people feel beautiful internally, but do men think you are attractive? And that is essentially, to me, what I'm seeing with this is that's exactly what is happening with the looks maxing community. That's what's happening with the red pill community. It's entirely based on, it's like a replication of what all the tabloid magazines and what all of those quiz magazine things and all of the a lot the media that was the ad campaigns in the media that was focused on dehumanizing women to nothing but bodies and whether or not men were interested in them is being replicated in the red pill space. And the people who are doing the replication are simply using a different form of media to do it. Instead of using written media, instead of using TV, instead of using ad placements, they're using social media. They're using long-term live streams, like long-form live streams. They're doing extreme acts on these live streams. They're they're cutting their streams into short form content to engage people and make them feel less than and unimportant and nothing more than their access to money, their ability to be seen as attractive to other men, because they don't really care if women think you're attractive, but to other men, and their ability to harm without repercussion or shame. And that is the biggest component, the biggest through line between all of these people, between Trump, between Elon Musk, between Clavicular, between um, Andrew Tate. They're all selling this sense of superiority through inferiority. And then Brand is saying, but they are selling stuff, products on these live streams. Yes, they are. Clavicular particularly is selling completely without any doctor recommendation or support certain types of like peptides and injections and a lot of different things. Tate was selling courses in a Ponzi style scheme, but was also selling human beings who were often underage and trapped. It was trafficking people. It's very bad. It's very bad. Elon is selling the environment. He's selling humans. He's selling in terms of in a more traditional corporate sense, I should say. Elon is selling a lot of things. And Trump is selling racism and misogyny. And he's been doing it effectively for 10 years now. I mean, he's been doing it for longer than that, but it wasn't as, I mean, once upon a time he was a Democrat. So, and the things that he has, if you compare things that he said before he was in the presidential run versus now, he would tear himself apart in his own tweets and his own Truth Social posts. So all of them are selling something versus, and crypto and stocks. And he's made himself multimillionaire. I think he's a billionaire from these crypto schemes that are in direct conflict of interest with his role as president. That you're not supposed to make money as president. You're not supposed to make the whole point. You're supposed to be doing things for the will and the good of the country, not just to enrich yourself. Branton says, and getting people to build his buildings, yes, and reducing regulations on things that might affect his financial growth or the financial growth of people who are also helping his financial growth. So it's absolutely about self-aggrandizement. It's about financing themselves at the very purposeful expense of others. Oftentimes minors, oftentimes people who they have, there has been records of physical harm. Like it's Aquaben is saying he's always been selling cruelty. The Apprentice was a pretty cool show. Yes. Reality television in general is very cruel in the way that it rarely allows human beings to be multidimensional people. But yes, so on the caricature aspect, you have people who are at the extreme of the extreme because it profits them. And what they're selling is harm to others and harm to their audience. Like, as long as it doesn't hurt them, but it hurts their audience, they don't care. And that's the thing. Whereas on this other end of coolness, likability, even authenticity, you don't have that. You don't have that. You have people, even the really mean, authentic people or things or components are not necessarily trying to harm to enrich themselves. That is not necessarily what is associated with authenticity. One actually figure that is not a real life figure, but who I always associate with authenticity is Nana, from Nana, the punk Nana, because she does things that are, she's very authentically herself. She's likable, she's cool, she is all of the things, and she is ultimately trying to return positive back into her community. But she also is a human being who does things that are silly and maybe also can be controlling. And it's like, but she's very authentic to me. So I think that there is an important difference between these things. because of the fact that at the core of this separation is harm and self-enrichment. Dolly Parton had made herself a lot of money. She then used that money to return good into communities throughout the country. Um, if anybody doesn't know what the Imagination Library is, what it is it's something that mails a book from birth until 5 years old every month of a kid's life, from birth until 5 years old, a new book to encourage reading. And she does it in like multiple areas, but especially in areas that have lower literacy support or rates due to lack of financial, um, especially like tax-based financial support for education, to help equalize a lot of spaces that are not able to access the types of resources that people who have higher tax brackets can afford. And there's often a racial dynamic to who is that higher tax bracket that has been structured. That is, again, another long conversation of the history of the United States and redlining and things like that. But either way, it's somebody who's able to, like, she is somebody who was able to make herself quite a bit of money, could have absolutely chosen to do the Elon Musk thing and invest that money or use it as collateral or use it for, like, what do you call it, the loan balancing thing, to grow her money into infinitely more, like, higher numbers. And I don't know if she did that in any way, but she definitely used an incredible portion of her finances to help people. People she might many times would never have met. Um, and I think that again is one example. Tim Curry was able to contribute to a piece of art that has done, I don't even know how, if you could quantify the amount of positive support or things that even just that one movie, that stage show, the um way that it has continued to be so popular, so important to so many people. I don't know if you could quantify what that has done, especially not in a financial sense, but every single, single one of the people that we've talked about so far, in who fit within the, somewhere with the spectrum of cool, likable, or authentic, or all three, um, they may have made themselves money. They may have made themselves wealthy. Or perhaps they came from wealth and increased their wealth with social, um, with people being aware of who they were. Celebrity. But they didn't then, they didn't use the structure of cruelty to make money at the expense of their audience. Every single one of the creators in the caricature category absolutely did. Oh, yeah. And it's sad because I do think it would be easy to some degree to still be bombastic, but not be cruel. And I do think you can see that on, anytime you open your phone and flip through, say, your shorts, like reels or FYP or whatever it is, you'll see people who are being perhaps bombastic or being intense or being attention grabbing, but they're not necessarily being a caricature of an extreme, utilizing harm as their method of financial gain. And I think that's something that needs to be very clearly understood, because I do think a lot of people don't think of clavicular as cool. They don't think of Andrew Tate as cool. But there's something that they do find engaging or intriguing about these figures. Hi, Bobby Christine. Hello, how are you? I am good. We're having a conversation about cool versus caricature. And the difference between cool, likability, authenticity, and then caricature. And in the caricature category, putting like people like Trump, people like Elon Musk, people like Clavicular, people like Andrew Tate. In the cool category, we have, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't mentioned her yet. Rihanna, Dolly Parton, Tim Curry. Both Dolly Parton and Tim Curry unfortunately passed. Dolly Parton yesterday, Tim Curry today. And a host of other creators and makers of all kinds. And I think it's been a really fascinating discussion to kind of explore all of these different things and all these different ideas, because once you kind of place it on some type of scale and you contrast these different creators, it does become pretty clear, pretty easy. People are thanks, Bobby Christine. Thank you. I do think, people are mourning the loss of Dolly Parton. They're mourning the loss of Tim Curry. They're mourning the effect that these people had on art, on conversation, on social change through their willingness to return or to exist within communities that didn't accept them in the way that they were. And they navigated that with internal stability and confidence, which in turn was very helpful for other people to see. So there is this. Bobby Christine says, "Do you think anyone can be both? To be both a caricature and cool?" I do think people can be cool, likable, and authentic, because authentic doesn't necessarily mean good or kind. It just means honest. And honesty doesn't always mean people are good or kind. But caricature is, I think, a wholly different distinction that is, especially now with the figures that we have to identify who fit within this category, super shaped by social media, by the ways that our attention has degraded because of short form video content, because of algorithms, because of the over exposure to intense signals, stimuli from our phone about, with color, with light, with sound, with movement. All of these things do have a huge effect on how we perceive and how we attend to different things. And so the people who are utilizing that to encourage even almost cult-like thinking, to enrich themselves, I think fall into caricature. But people who, like Dolly Parton, are returning resources and positive change, using the money given to them to return positive change to the community that has helped them. That, I think, is very different. There's a massive distinction. And it's interesting because at the end of the day, we've had this whole live stream just to ultimately identify that when you're cool, you don't hurt people. When you're a caricature, you don't know how to do anything but cause harm. Grant says, well, people like Dolly Parton and Tim Curry were caricatures in their movies. In a way, I think the big difference is that they were definitely, there were certain exaggerated features, exaggerated components to their presentation, but the way they moved through those things was with utter confidence, complete confidence. I would almost argue that it's cooler than it's more cool than caricature, whereas the figures who fit in the caricature category, maybe I haven't identified this yet, is they're deeply insecure. they're trying desperately to fit the standard and expectation of something that is not internal, not theirs. They are like clavicular is using gender affirming care to feel masculine and to feel like he's fitting the assumption of what masculinity is supposed to be within a very rigid stereotype. Same thing with Andrew Tate, but he's also including a lot. I mean, clavicular is also harming women and girls, but Andrew Tate is more obviously, and I think more systemically, was harming women and girls and encouraging men to do the same. Um, Trump, obviously, no explanation needed there. Elon Musk as well. Um, oh, Bobby Christina is saying, I think I understand the difference much better with that explanation. I'm so glad. Yeah. And then, oh, any thoughts on where Hassan Piker might land? I think Hassan Piker is authentic. I think he's profoundly authentic. I do also think he's cool. Because cool and Bobby Christine, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but cool actually comes from, it was originated as a phrase from enslaved Africans and Black Americans who were able to navigate racism and white supremacy and the intensity and the intense cruelty they were often subjugated to with an internal stability, with the ability, as it was said, to keep a cool head, to keep themselves from reacting with anger and reacting with frustration in those moments, um, which often kept people alive. And was was that fair? No, no, it wasn't. People have been allowed to react with anger, obviously, but in terms of life-saving measures, it may have helped. So that's where that comes from, and then it also comes from the jazz community and the jazz musicians. And which jazz musician was it again? Lester Young. There we go. Um, yes, who would also try to like embody that idea of like clear-headedness and stable mindedness through his music, and was very informative, very influential on the structure of jazz as a whole. So that's where cool actually comes from. It doesn't necessarily mean you're likable. It doesn't necessarily mean you're wholly authentic all the time, but it does mean that on an internal level, you're able to navigate difficult or any, like just able to navigate existence with internal confidence and stability, regardless of external factors. So you can be a very cool person. You can also be thoroughly unlikable. I think Hassan Piker is generally a very cool person and a very authentic person. I don't know if he is fully likable. I like him, but I know a lot of people don't. So that's why there is this kind of, I put it on a spectrum where cool is on one end, caricature is on the other, authentic is a little bit in the middle, and then likable is between authentic and cool. And the reason for that being that you can be all of those things, all of like authentic to cool. You can be likable and authentic. You can be cool and authentic. You can be all three, cool, likable, and authentic. And often, especially on a celebrity landscape, the people who are the most loved are all three and operate and were able to attain social celebrity or celebrity of any kind because they did not return harm to their community while also being authentic to themselves, cool, and likable. So they're able to humanize themselves as well. But yeah. Um, Ran is saying jazz for me, jazz only works live, so much more fun in person because it's supposed to be improvised. Jazz is fun. Jazz is beautiful. Um I like a lot of jazz, I think. I think, well, okay, how should I say this? I like jazz. I like jazz influenced things or things that incorporate components of jazz into it. Uh, so Yeah, I feel like it works in many different platforms, many different ways, mediums. Oh, Bobby Christine says, in terms of Hassan Piker, I like him. Before your latest breakdown, I had a hard time not imagining him as a little bit both cool and caricature. But you see how he leans more towards one side for sure. Yeah, and I understand that. I think that um, caricature is, I guess, the way that I would kind of identify the easiest way to identify it as caricature is desperately attempting to fit an extreme without internal confidence. Cool is perhaps an extreme with internal confidence. That's why they're on different ends. So again, you can have people that you don't maybe, but likability is a huge component because a lot of times we will not like someone and think they're a caricature. But if you look at them, I would argue that perhaps they're simply authentic. We just don't like who they are. They're not necessarily likable in their authenticity. Um, One thing I realized I forgot to mention earlier was when I was kind of bringing up how within there's the Pratfall effect, which is the scientific study that explores the ranges of this phenomenon of like, perfection to um incapability and where and how people perceive those different ranges is if you are too perfect, you are seen as inhuman, you are seen like a statue. And a lot of the ways that we structure celebrity is to attain this level of perfection as the base. And then one thing that I've noticed happens, especially with social media, is maybe the what do you call it? Maybe the the companies behind these celebrities who maybe are responsible for their marketing and their social media will release BTS videos of those like perfect creators, perfect stars, doing silly human things to humanize them, to make them more approachable, make them feel more like you, more like me. And there's often a lot of like targeted reasoning behind that. For example, Brad Pitt, when if when he's after it became more public knowledge that he harmed his children and his wife at the time, Angelina Jolie, in a very, very scary, very, very not cool, very not legal way, um, on a plane in 2014. And then it became publicized that that had happened. It wasn't until it became publicized you started seeing him talk about going into recovery and navigating his addictions. Um, but you never saw anything about that before. No commentary about it, regardless of its existence. So sometimes things like that are released on purpose to humanize somebody who has purposely been um, created into an idol through public image. So Bobby Christine says, God, what better example of cool than Dolly and Carrie? It's wild. And what if they're authentic about their insecurity? Conan O'Brien comes to mind. Lean's cool, but there's an interesting blend. I actually think that that still makes you cool. Being insecure is such an interesting concept because there's like if you're authentic about your insecurity, um okay, actually, you know what? Maybe we could argue within this frame for sure. Conan is likable and authentic. Is he cool? Maybe not. Maybe he's not cool, but he is likable and authentic. And he understands that works for him. So yeah, I kind of, the more that I think about this, the more I'm like, oh wait, there's more people that fit into this than maybe is coming to mind right now. But I am kind of interested as like if we play that game of like, you say any particular person, where do they fit in this scale? Um, I talked earlier about Nana from Nana Komatsu, and Punk Nana, and I was like, she's authentic. and she's cool. She's not always likable because she's not always kind. Sometimes she's controlling. Bobby Christine says, "Totally still cool." Conan O'Brien, yeah. But yeah, so it's just like a form of it doesn't necessarily mean what a lot of people I think use as the markers of cool, which is normally fashionable, which is normally extreme. I don't always think that that is the perfect example of what cool is. It's certainly the type of cool that we see reflected in media the most. But there's a lot of people that you'll interact with on the daily who maybe don't have particular extremes in the way that they dress or move through the world, but they're really cool. They just embody coolness. Um, yeah, like Zendaya does have really good fashion. Not a great example. She's all the things. Um, hmm. I was like, Rihanna, Zendaya. And I was like, wait, nope, nope, nope. Fashion icons, both of them. What am I talking about? So maybe not the best example, but still, you can. There's definitely people that you've come across in your day-to-day life who absolutely fit these parameters. Brant says, "Well, it so much depends on your perspective of who qualifies." In what way do you mean that, Brant? Like in term when I was talking about fashion, um, and it not you not needing to have like a profound sense of fashion or a profound sense of style. Oh, you know what? Who maybe would qualify there that I personally don't think would, but yeah, Adam Sandler, because I don't like Adam Sandler. I find him very frustrating. I also think he's a pretty big Zionist. So, but um, he is a multi-million dollar millionaire. He makes lots of money, but he dresses not like that at all. He dresses very differently. He dresses well, I guess as Brant just said, I find some things that are probably boring very cool. That only further actually supports my point. You don't have to be an extreme to be cool. You just have to be stable and confident. Grant says Adam Sandler is awesome and for New Hampshire. I don't know about the background and from New Hampshire. Oh, I see. I don't know. Adam Sandler, I think there was something that I saw that was concerning, but I'm not sure. Um, do, do, do. Oh. Mm. I think this is gonna take a while to Evil Elmo. Okay, I'm gonna need to just go and research this afterwards because I will be. That's gonna take a while to get through. So, oh, Bobby Christine, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, oh, thanks. I tried. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do is Oh my god, Brent, thank you so much. It's so sweet. What I'm gonna do is after the stream is over, because I am where am I at now? I'm at 2 hours. Go me. Okay. Also go y'all for sticking around for this long, especially considering I started late. Oh my god. Y'all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, what I'm gonna do is after the live, I'm gonna include source notes about the Pratfall study and some like maybe helpful tidbits to explore more of these ideas. There was actually the thing that kind of started me off on this outside of just like the Dolly Parton thing was this a reel I saw a few weeks ago that talked about incongruence and how you can have people who like William Dafoe who are really really cool, but then they do things that are really like unexpected. Like they have maybe fashion moments where they'll wear things that don't fit with what you assume about them. Um, Aqua. I did not. Um, oh my gosh. Aqua's saying I locked him in a basement, and obviously that on a fallacy level is obviously false, because that sounds funny the way that that came out. That was weird. Wait, words? No. Anyways, that is not how that would work because you went on a date the other day, so huh. Okay. Anyways, I'm not gonna think about that anymore. Uh, oh man. Yeah, okay, you could definitely tell my brain is getting into the whoop 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 territory, so stop. But I'm gonna do source notes with all of those things, and then I'm also gonna include the reel that found that talked about like the concept of incongruence and how like confidence versus and like kind of contradictory components about confidence. And I think in that particular reel, it really highlights certain actors and creators who surprise you with things that humanize them. Um, that while they have already accomplished becoming an ideal of some kind, it kind of explores more the concept of the ways that when you realize that they are real human beings and real people, it shifts your perspective of them and creates a stronger sense of likability in regard to how they are seen publicly. Um, so that's the pratfall effect. So it does talk about that, and I will include that, and I'll include some other things as well. But I think. Let me. Was there anything I missed from this entire conversation? Talked about this kind of spectrum of different ways you can exist: insecurity versus and like harm based versus security, stability, and at least community interaction based. Okay, so I think we got to a good point. Are there questions? Are there things that you're curious about that I didn't talk about or that I didn't get to? Please don't forget to let me know. Oh, also, you can always comment underneath the video because I forget this will be recorded. You'll see it. There'll be a video. You can write it down there. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna go for the night. And if you have questions, if there's anything you're curious about, please don't hesitate to let me know. And if you haven't yet, if you are just watching and just kind of tuning in, please don't forget to subscribe. I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Bowie Christine. Thank you, thank you. Yee. Um, I always forget to do updates, life updates as well during these, but I will update y'all on Discord, of course, and we'll have another Discord meeting on Sunday. Oh, Bobby Christine is more questions, more people. More, oh my god, no! If you have people, let me know. Let me know. Let's talk about it. I might be able to do a quick response. Because I'm really curious. I feel like I'm going to be thinking about this for the next couple of days too, or it's just going to be like, I wonder where that person would go. I wonder where that other person would go. But I think, that's fun. I find that to be fun. But I know not everybody does. That's okay though. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for jumping in tonight. And don't forget to leave comments underneath if you have more questions about maybe like Bobby Christine's, different people that are springing to mind and where they might fit within this interesting little spectrum style that I came up with. So, yeah. Jim Carrey. Ooh, well, caricature. He harms women, unfortunately. Yeah. No, Bobby Christine, it's okay. Yeah, I would argue that Jim Carrey is a little bit closer to caricature because of the fact that he has used his fame and his notoriety to avoid accountability. Um, yeah. So again, I think that, there's other characters as well who maybe would be identified as caricatures who others wouldn't identify as caricatures. Army Hammer, for example. I think most of the time when you think caricature, you literally think people who are extreme in a way that is not conventionally attractive. And conventional attractiveness actually has nothing to do with it. I think the Kardashians are caricatures. But do they technically qualify as conventionally attractive? Absolutely. Um, that Aqua says Jim Carrey is really not a good person, but he's convinced everyone he is until you dig deeper. Unfortunately, yes. Leonardo DiCaprio, total caricature. Um, the first Toby Maguire, total caricature. Um, Elizabeth Moss, uh, perhaps a caricature. Jury's out. Ashton Kutcher, total caricature. Um, oh my gosh. Aqua is saying that Jim Carrey has been anti-vax for a while as well. Yeah, no, big no. Perez Hilton, total caricature. I mean, that one's obvious, but yeah, yeah. Interestingly, I actually don't think that Paris Hilton, different, obviously Hilton, radically, but I actually don't think that Paris Hilton is a caricature. I think she might be a little like Hassan Piker, cool because she's internally confident and authentic, but not likable. Some people love her, but again, in the grander scheme of things, she didn't always present herself as likable. There are things where she dips into caricature, for sure. Um, her presentation of femininity was definitely very misogynistically based, but what has she done with the wealth that she has? Largely not negative things, as far as I know. But that might need more just exploration and discovery. She definitely has contributed certain positivities back into the community because of her willingness to discuss very vulnerable situations that she went through with rehabilitative schools, those ones that steal you in the middle of the night. Um, Aka says, you know who is authentic AF? Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers is, yes, Fred Rogers is cool, likable, authentic, loved. Fred Rogers is loved. So, yes. Um, oh, Aqua says, oh, I've seen those. Aqua says there's a great TikToker whose entire content is your favorite celebrity actually a good person? Yes. I love those. I love those. That was actually how I found out about Burt McCracken being pro-Palestine since 2005. I didn't know that. So you never know. And Bobby Christine says, I wonder who will one day see on the same level as Dolly and Curry. That's a very good question. And I think Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is probably in that vein, but there's going to be other people for sure. There's probably people that we're not aware of at the moment, or that we are, if we think about it for a few minutes, we'll be like, oh yeah, that person. Um, what's up, Aqua? Oh, me? What? Oh gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Um, that is very kind. Yeah. I highly doubt I will ever be famous, but I appreciate you immensely. Um, but thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, let me know. Any other people that are coming to mind in terms of where they might fit on this scale? The cast of It's Always Sunny. Have they done good things? I will say I've mostly some of the only episodes I've seen of It's Always Sunny are the ones where Dee was like, I know it was supposed to be caricature, but like had a bunch of racist depictions of people. And it was supposed to be funny, but it wasn't funny. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen much of It's Always Sunny. Danny DeVito has? Oh no. Didn't realize how long he'd been around. Have you ever seen Danny DeVito young? It's weird. He seems like he's always been old. Um, but yes. Hmm, who else? I feel like, gosh, what's her name? Shirley. Garbage. She's from Garbage. Uh, do. Manson. Shirley Manson. I feel like we're gonna hear good things about her. I hope eventually. Um, yeah, we will know as we go. Oh, oh, okay. Aqua is saying Danny DeVito has done good things, to be clear, and Bobby Christine is saying the It's Always Sunny cast goes hard at Pride parades. Oh, okay, good. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I am glad to hear that. So maybe authentic and likable? Aqua says don't trust celebrities that go to Pride. It could be a form of virtue signaling. I could see that. I guess it would depend. I guess it depends again on the context and the things they do other than just going to Pride. Do they do more than go on the floats and wave and have fun? Do they also help the community in more actionable ways that they have access to do that others can't? That's always a good question that we should always be asking. But okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for jumping in tonight. Thank you for navigating my inside out thoughts and brain sometimes. I will see you all. Don't inherently trust them, says Aqua Bandit. That makes sense. Which again still qualifies the question of are they there to enjoy themselves and to be seen, or are they also doing more than just being seen? Oh, Aqua is saying Ashton Kutcher was a big Pride Parade supporter, for example. Oh, that is sad. I mean, he literally had that whole Thorn nonprofit where people thought he was helping in victims. But yeah, well, he's again another good example of caricature that was ultimately identified as caricature, but definitely tried to hide as accessible, likable, and cool. But that's another component of how this all will work, and we can continue that conversation next time. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. All right. Bye.